The Evil Eye. Chapter 1. The Commission. In the heart of the old town of Everwood, where cobblestone streets twisted like serpents through the mist, there stood a modest studio adorned with the scent of linseed oil and old canvas. It was the home of Elias Ward, a painter renowned for his ability to capture the soul of his subjects with an almost eerie precision. His small studio, cluttered with brushes, paints, and half-finished works, was his sanctuary. One chilly autumn evening, as the last rays of sunlight filtered through the dusty windows, a figure appeared at the door. The man was tall, his posture rigid, a cane tapping rhythmically against the wooden floor. His face, partially hidden by a wide-brimmed hat, was marked by an unsettling calm. One eye, a deep, unsettling shade of glass, seemed to shimmer with a malevolent light. "Mr. Ward?" the man inquired, his voice smooth and cold as he stepped into the studio. "I am in need of your services. I require a portrait, one that will capture the very essence of my being." Elias looked up from his easel, his curiosity piqued by the stranger's enigmatic presence. "Of course," he replied, his voice steady. "I'd be honored to paint your portrait. Please, take a seat." The stranger's eyes, cold and calculating, flickered with something that seemed almost like amusement. "Thank you. I trust you will do your best work. I have a feeling this will be a very special portrait." Chapter 2. The Details. The stranger settled into a high-backed chair, his cane resting against the side. He removed his hat, revealing a head of silver hair and a face marked by age, yet with a certain otherworldly quality. Elias began to set up his canvas, the air thick with the anticipation of creation. "Tell me, sir," Elias began, his hands trembling slightly with excitement. "What should I know about you? What aspects of your essence would you like me to capture?" The stranger's glass eyes seemed to flicker with an inner light, his lips curving into a faint, cryptic smile. "I wish for you to capture the truth, Mr. Ward. The truth behind my eye, the secrets of my soul. Make it as vivid and lifelike as you can, for this portrait will be my legacy." As Elias painted, the room seemed to grow colder, the shadows deepening as if the very air was drawing back, watching the creation of the mysterious figure. The stranger remained still, his gaze unwavering, his presence almost suffocating in its intensity. Hours passed, the flickering candlelight casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. Elias's brush moved with a fluid grace, each stroke a testament to his skill, his vision. The stranger's face began to take form on the canvas, his glass eye glowing with an unsettling light, his expression serene yet filled with a hidden darkness. "Are you satisfied with the progress?" Elias asked, his voice breaking the silence, his eyes meeting the stranger's with a hint of apprehension. The stranger's lips parted in a slow, chilling smile. "It is perfect. You are doing wonderfully, Mr. Ward. Now finish it. Make it eternal." Chapter 3. The Transformation. The final strokes were applied, the portrait now a lifelike representation of the stranger, his glass eyes shimmering with a life of its own. Elias stepped back, his breath catching in his throat as he surveyed his work. The portrait was stunning, the depth of the stranger's gaze almost hypnotic, the details so vivid they seemed to pulse with life. "Finished," Elias whispered, his voice a mix of awe and fear. "It's done. I can hardly believe it." The stranger rose from his chair, his movements slow and deliberate. He approached the canvas, his glass eye fixed on the painted face. "Yes, it is done," he said, his voice a low, sinister murmur. "And now the true magic begins." Elias felt a cold shiver run down his spine as the stranger reached out, his hand hovering inches from the portrait. The air in the room seemed to thicken, the shadows swirling with a dark energy. Elias's heart pounded in his chest, his hands trembling uncontrollably. What are you doing?" Elias stammered, his voice barely audible over the growing tension. The stranger's smile widened, his eyes gleaming with a sinister light. "I am giving you the gift of eternity, Mr. Ward. Your work will live on, but you will become a part of it." As the stranger's fingers touched the canvas, a blinding flash of light erupted from the painting. Elias cried out, his body convulsing as he felt an unbearable pain radiate from his fingertips to his core. His vision blurred, the room spinning around him as he watched in horror as his flesh began to harden, his form slowly turning to stone. No, this can't be happening! Elias gasped, his voice a tortured scream as his legs and arms stiffened, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The stranger's laughter, cold and mocking, filled the room, echoing off the walls. It is happening, Mr. Ward. Your masterpiece will be eternal, and you will be its guardian, frozen in time, forever bound to the canvas you created. Chapter 4, The Transformation Complete. Elias's body was now nearly solid stone, his eyes wide with terror and disbelief. His last moments of humanity were slipping away, his thoughts a chaotic blur of pain and fear. The stranger stood over him, his face a mask of cold satisfaction, his glass eye gleaming with a sinister light. You will stand here forever watching, a silent sentinel to your creation, the stranger said, his voice a chilling whisper. Your soul, now part of the portrait, will bear witness to its glory and its darkness. With a final, agonizing breath, Elias's transformation was complete. His form, once a vibrant human, now stood as a cold, lifeless statue, his eyes still frozen in terror, his hands forever reaching out in silent plea. The portrait on the canvas, now fully illuminated by the flickering candlelight, seemed to pulse with an eerie life of its own, the glass eye shimmering with an unsettling glow. The stranger stepped back, his gaze fixed on the now stone figure. You have done well, Mr. Ward. Your work is complete. Now I shall take my leave, and your eternal vigil shall begin. With a final sinister smile, the stranger turned and walked out of the studio, his cane tapping a rhythmic farewell against the stone floor. The room fell silent once more, the air heavy with the weight of the dark magic that had transpired. Chapter 5, The Eternal Watcher. Elias stood, or rather he remained, a silent sentinel to his own creation. His stone eyes, now dull and lifeless, stared unblinkingly at the portrait, his soul forever bound to the canvas. The room, once filled with the warmth of creation, now stood cold and silent, the shadows deepening with the passage of time. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and months to years. The world outside continued its relentless march forward, oblivious to the silent watcher within the studio. The townsfolk whispered of the strange happenings at the old painter's studio, the eerie glow that sometimes flickered through the windows, the feeling of being watched that seemed to linger in the air. Elias's stone form remained unyielding, his mind trapped in a perpetual state of torment. His thoughts, once vibrant and full of life, were now a chaotic maelstrom of fear and anguish, his soul crying out for release that would never come. The portrait, now a dark symbol of his eternal torment, continued to pulse with a life of its own, its glass eye gleaming with an unsettling light that seemed to pierce through the very fabric of reality. Chapter 6, The Legacy. As the years passed, the legend of the cursed portrait grew, its dark tale whispered among the townsfolk like a forbidden secret. The studio, once a place of light and creativity, became a place of dread, its doors locked and its windows shuttered against the encroaching darkness. No one knew what had truly happened to Elias Ward, the painter who had become a part of his own creation. Some said he had been consumed by his own madness, others that he had been taken by the dark forces he had unwittingly unleashed. But one thing was certain: the portrait, with its eerie glass eye and sinister aura, remained a silent testament to his eternal torment. And so, the old studio stood, a monument to the dark magic that had bound Elias Ward to his masterpiece. The townsfolk continued their lives, the shadows of the past ever present, the legend of the glass-eyed stranger and the stone sentinel, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the veil of reality. As the first light of dawn broke through the studio windows, casting long, trembling shadows across the room, Elias's stone eyes remained fixed on the portrait, his soul forever trapped in the chilling embrace of his own creation. The world outside continued to turn, oblivious to the silent watcher who stood, frozen in time, a prisoner to the darkness he had once sought to capture.